I've realised my camera was muted. I am so. Oh, today I'm not in a good mood when it comes to Tottenham. Good morning, everyone. I hope you're good. I hope you're well. We'll do this again. Yes, this one's going to be an interesting one. After yesterday's developments and yesterday's embarrassment, I am joined by two people making their Tottenham on tour debuts. So I'll introduce them both first. First of all, a very, very close friend of mine and making his debut, George. Sir, how are you?
Hey, I'm well, Brian. How are you doing?
I'm everything apart from the football club. I'm good. I'm good.
I know the feeling.
Fresh off Talk Sport and doing wonderful things on his channel and for autism is obviously Mr. Harry Scarf. How are you, Harry?
No, I'm very good, thank you. It's good to be here. Thank you very much for having me. I look forward to getting into it because obviously got a transfer window closing Friday, and we're in a bit of a mess, to be honest with you. So I'm looking forward to discussing it.
Isn't it sweet? A bit of a mess. A bit of a yeah. That's the nice. It's early in the morning. But let's just say hello to everyone. Just a harmless potato. How we doing, buddy? Brian Maguire, Crossbone Gaming, the Bertie Hotspur, Scott, Emmanuel, Drula. How are you, darling? We have got Blake. We have got my boy from Sweden, Tony Rodriguez. We've got Lee Smithy Smith. We got Dan G. We have Dan E. Any other Dans in the alphabet? Josh. We have Warrior without a master. Mark Cousins, the Sheriff. Seb Shah. Another George. My brother, Ryan Isaacs. Antonio. Benjamin Foster. Who has got, as always, Colin. Good morning, Colin. They don't get me down. They just fire me up, and others. Paul, good morning to you. DMB forever. Who else is in? My brother, Wayne Hollands. How are you, Wayne? We'll speak later. Spurs Rule. And Eddie. There's already 89 people in here. Please smash the like button. And if you haven't, push a subscribe. All right, we might as well just get straight into it. And good morning, Luke. And of course, good morning, Bobby. Transfer window closes in less than 48 hours now. I can't be bothered doing the maths. And obviously, yesterday, we had the Fati great news, followed by the Fati obvious news. For people that didn't watch the show when we went live yesterday, I'm going to kind of put some context into how quickly this deal fell apart. And I'm going to link it because this ain't the first time this has happened. When we were going Trossard last January, it was the day we were playing Manchester City away when we lost 4-2. Arsenal registered their interest, and Ben from We Are Tottenham TV picked me up from outside my very house. And by the time we got to Birmingham, we had the here we go. Well, yesterday, I was doing We Are Tottenham TV update with Ben. He was having some internet issues. And as he was having internet issues, the news was breaking that he's 99% done. He's coming for a medical at Tottenham Hotspur. He drove to his parents' house, which is 5 minutes away, because he had internet issues. We had been speaking for 5 minutes. And here we go to Brighton. That's how quickly this deal fell apart. I'm going to go to George first, because, George, you and I have obviously seen this football club in days before Enoch and before Levy. And when transfers like Paul Gascoigne, Jurgen Klinsmann were done. Obviously, we can use Rafa van der Vaart for Levy, but that's a one-off in 23 years. How can you even begin to explain what is happening to this football club right now?
Right, so my understanding is that he's going to Brighton. Is that correct?
Correct.
Right, okay. So it's the only defining factor here has to be financial. It has to probably be the money. The fact that Tottenham is no longer really an attractive football club for your top players. I don't know if Fati's comes with a big reputation, but has also come with a reputation that he spent, I think it was almost 2 seasons injured. Yeah. So he's not the kid dynamite that he used to be, but he's still obviously a big name. But the fact that he's got a choice to make between Tottenham Hotspur and Brighton, and he chooses to go to Brighton when he's got the facilities really which are second to none at Tottenham, but he wants to go to Brighton. It's not really inspiring from a supporter's point of view, is it? I mean, I think it's just an indication that we are no longer the attractive club that we used to be. We can flip this slightly on its head. Did we offer enough money? Was he worth the risk?
George, let me give you some context on that very quickly, because I got told last night by someone I trust deeply, and very much so, that basically it was going to be a loan for one season, no obligation, no option. So Barcelona wanted 100% of his wages paid for by the club. Now, I don't know if we were offering 70 or we were only offering 30, but there was a 30 number involved. So I don't know if we offered to pay 70% of his wages or we did a Daniel Levy thing and offered to pay 30.
That's probably £30
Brighton
a week.
Paying 100%.
It's probably £30 a week, Brian.
But that's well. So when we talk money, it could be that. But also, Anne spoke to Fati and explained how important it'd be. De Zerbi had a talk with him, and he's ended up at Brighton. That's not a shot at Ange, because I completely back Ange. But what is going on, George?
It's surprising. I mean, considering if that is the case, Maddison said that his discussion with Ange was the deciding factor on him joining Tottenham. I mean, I can only see it as being purely financial as to what we were willing to stump up in respect of the wages, and or whether there was Barcelona wanted a commitment for a purchase at the end of the loan. It is, as I said, from a Tottenham Hotspur point of view, as a supporter, it's not exactly inspiring. Listen, I go into these transfer windows now, and I don't expect the big names to be particularly interested in Spurs. I think if they are, it is as a result of going to be a loan with an option, or there's always going to be some other deal rolled up in the whole thing, which, look, I acknowledge that's the future now. All clubs are going to pretty much be doing that. But I don't expect Tottenham really to be going in for the big names and spending the big money. So I have to say, from looking at it slightly negatively, it's not something that I would have ever expected really to happen when we got associated with him. So it cushions the blow to a certain degree. But yeah, look, it's considering we've got our bright new shiny stadium, we've got our wonderful training facilities. The only real reason that a player would end up going to Brighton would be to, it's going to be financial. It's going to be what Spurs wanted to pay and what Brighton were willing to pay.
There you go. Now, Harry, obviously it's a bit different for you because for obvious reasons you only know this football club with these owners. I mean, what's your viewpoint of this window and how things are looking up? Or not looking up, I wish. How things are looking.
Yeah, it's frustrating because I think we bought good players in, but we failed to get players out the door. We failed to find a replacement with Kane to compete with Richarlison. We still haven't bought backup centre back in, and to sit here and go that there's still no one to compete with Richarlison or no one to replace Kane, if you like, is rather shocking because we're going to end up having to pay a lot more, for example, for Forest, for Brennan Johnson, because we haven't got the Fati deal over the line and it's taken us that long. We shouldn't be in this situation where we still need a striker. So that, for me, that is quite poor, and it is quite embarrassing that Brighton are now all of a sudden more advertising club than Tottenham. How quickly the deal got done. I was on the Cheese Room podcast last night. We started the show. I announced the breaking news that I heard from Fabrizio Romano, 99% done. And then within less than 20 minutes before even we got to halfway through the show, the deal completely not only collapsed, but it was going to Brighton. Here we go. Medical done, and he's flying. So that's how quickly Brighton do business. They're a serious club. They have a great model in place. So it's frustrating, to be honest with you, Brian. But now we need to make sure that we still bring someone in Johnson. But because you've left it so long, Levy ends up doing what he doesn't want to do, and that is probably paying more, or we don't get the player. So we shouldn't have been in this situation because we started the window quite well. And you know, and what's frustrating is Ange says that we planned for Harry Kane to leave. Well, we bought Belix in for the future. I get that. I like that. You know, it's good thinking for the future. We've got no one now to compete with Richarlison, for example, whether you believe in Richarlison or not. So it's frustrating with you, Brian, because this window had potential, but it's been messed up at the moment.
Every window has potential, and then it opens, and then people realise who we're dealing with. People like myself, George, and other people, I'm going to use George, is obviously with us today, say this all the time, see it. It gets denied. It gets what you're talking about. This window's going to be massive. And here we are. I think this might be the 5th, 6th or 7th window in a row in the summer where we're rushing around and running around with players out and in needed to be done. And you mentioned Brennan Johnson and Colin. I hope what you just said, and if Colin is saying it, anything about Brennan Johnson, if Colin says it, for me, Colin is Fabrizio Romano when it comes to Brennan Johnson. I saw yesterday that Brentford have gone back in for him. And if this is true, then and apparently from what Ben was saying yesterday when I did the update, who would have thought it? Apparently we are miles apart from the valuation of trying to get him in. George, I haven't seen you, or I haven't listened to yourself on Tottenham on We Are Tottenham TV. Have you spoken about Johnson when you've been on with the boys at all? What's your thoughts behind him?
Listen, okay, so my take on this is if Ange wants him, then he's the player to get. I mean, that it's that simple. Now, if I could just take a back step, if you could just allow me to
George, you do what you want, buddy.
Go back in time, because you mentioned the magic player here, which is the key example, and that's Trossard.
Yeah,
Trossard is exactly the player that we needed last season. Okay,
yep.
So he was a striker. We were aware of Harry Kane's position, and we were aware that Trossard wanting to leave, and what we needed to do was get in there quick and pay the right amount of money. We went in there and we offered something ridiculous. I mean, it was an embarrassing. I think it was something crazy, like 8 million or 12 million or whatever it was. It was just, it was an insult, I think, to Brighton, and I think it's you know, it ended up being a joke. And like you said, we were then upped to a certain amount, so we were sort of you could tell what we were doing. It was just a haggling situation. It was a marketplace sort of type of scenario where they're sort of haggling with each other. And what do Arsenal do? They step in, pay what they needed to pay because he is the player that they needed or wanted, and Arsenal got him. Now, it's not the first time. We can go back more years. I mean, the Mane situation, the Grealish situation. I mean, this is a trend with this club that people just forget, and they no longer remember that this is a constant theme with the recruitment policy, and we're stuck with all these players, not just because of the whole negotiation process is wrong. The whole recruitment process is wrong. If you need a player and you are ambitious, you go out and you buy that player. If you're Arsenal and you think that you need Rice, you go out and you spend £100 million on Rice.
Yep.
So I mean, it's just, look. We say we're ambitious. The board can say they're ambitious, but realistically speaking, on the pitch, they're not. And I think once you come to terms with that, then the disappointment, the edge of the disappointment on each of these transfer windows is taken off slightly. This one's just been worse because we've lost Harry.
Yeah.
And I think that whole backdrop has just sort of clouded absolutely everything. We've been lucky enough to have had a decent start in the league. So again, that's taken the edge off things slightly. But look, Brian, you talk to a lot of supporters. I talk to a lot of supporters. The despondency and what our expectation is falling way below the mark as to what we should be as Tottenham Hotspur supporters. And that's the main problem here. I think the fans themselves have just fallen into this mire of, well, it's Tottenham and that's the way it is.
You're right. And you know what? You mentioned Harry Kane. This is what I'm going to bring to you here, Harry. And thank you to the over 200 people that are already here with us. I really appreciate you spending the morning with us. Harry, George mentioned Harry Kane. Now, when it comes to Brennan Johnson, we were told and we heard that from Ange, that we knew from when he was coming into training that this was going to happen.
Yeah,
we knew, and we're bracing ourselves for it. We're preparing for it. And apparently Ange, and if it is like George said, fine, go get him. It's Ange's first choice. I fully back it. If you knew this was Ange's first choice, and you were losing Harry Kane, and you've got £86 million cash sitting in the bank, before I even go into what else there is and other revenues, why are we waiting? And why is he not in a Spurs shirt right now?
I know, it's crazy. When we planning for Kane means you've got a replacement lined up. Here we go, and they're flying over, or it's already done, but you just got to announce it. That was not the case, and that's been proven. And with Johnson now, what we're going to have to do is, because we left it so long, we're going to have to just pay the money. I think Levy's got give in and pay it, or we don't get the player, because I think Forest will hold out for whatever they believe, whether it's 50 million, 60 million. I think they'll hold out for that. Ange wants him, then fine. And potentially we could send players the other way, so that could help with offloading players. Another thing I think we've failed on, that frustrates me a lot, amount of players that, because a rebuild, Brian, it's not just bringing players in, it's also getting players out the door. We've bought some good players in Van der Ven and Maddison, but we haven't got a backup striker. We still haven't got a backup centre-back. And for me, also importantly, we haven't got players out the door. So, we're not bringing anyone else in. Like the centre-backs, there's a possibility that Sanchez, Dye and Tanganga could leave, but I haven't been seen as linked to a centre-back at all. So, you can't just be left with two centre-backs. Van der Ven or Romero get an injury or suspension and we were in big trouble. With Johnson, it should have been done by now. If Ange believes in him, and the club want to back their manager and believe in Ange, then go out and get Johnson. So time will tell, but regardless of what happens, it's been left probably far too late. Should have been brought in for me before the season starts if you knew that Kane was going. So it's a frustrating one, but obviously we've got an important less than 40 hours now. Like the comment said there, about 37 hours to go. Time is ticking. For me, we need 2 more players, and we still need to get a fair few players out the door as well. So lots to do. But when we started quickly, we brought Maddison in the door quickly. We got the centre back done eventually through Van der Ven. Like I said, the window, even halfway through, had a lot of potential, but we've done what we've done the summer before, got our business done early, then had a dry patch in the middle and left it late to get things done, but we need to get players out the door as well. Johnson should already be here. Like I said, if Ange believes in him. It's just a strange one, very odd.
It is. We've got someone joining us in about 5 minutes who thankfully can join us. It's Kuva. So Kuva will be joining us very, very shortly. But what I will speak, because I'll get Kuva to quickly recap what he feels on Fati and Johnson and whatever. We'll go on to players out, and I have got a super chat in from someone, but I will be bringing that up when we get to players out. So Jake, it will be coming up very, very shortly, your super chat, and we will be discussing it. But I got sent a photo from Ben, We Are Tottenham TV. I asked it last night when we were doing our pop-up. George, did you see the show with We Are Tottenham TV when they were showing the when they took an in-depth look at our transfers and how badly we need to get people out and our homegrown? Did you see that show?
I didn't see any stats on it. I may have seen sort of excerpts of it.
Okay, so this is how bad we are, how bad a place we are, and this is how badly we've been run. So for people that didn't watch the show yesterday, that we did like the emergency pop-up, I'm just going to go over it right now. Now, obviously, we know right now we're talking about how badly we need homegrown people and how bad our homegrown quota is. Right now, in Tottenham Hotspur's official squad, our homegrown players are Forster, Davies, Maddison, Whiteman, Austin, Tanganga, Sessegnon, Spence, Skip, White. So you hear they think, all right, we've got 8 players. We go through this. We look at it for Spurs' future. Fraser Forster will not be part of our long-term future. So that's one of the 8 that won't be part of it. We've got a homegrown problem. Ben Davies, you would think the same for our long-term future. Maddison, of course, he's here for the duration. Whiteman, Austin, Tanganga, Sessegnon, Spence. Don't know what you want to say about that, but Skip and White.
Yeah.
They're all not going to be here long term. Maybe Skip. So I think the ones that you could probably say have a big future here, definitely Maddison, maybe Spence, and maybe Skip. Maybe. So that brings us down to 3 tops. And then from our under 21s that are potentially coming through, Parrott, Sarr, Adoji, Valise, Scarlett, Divine, Phillips. Parrott, I don't think has a future. Sarr, Adoji, Valise, obviously can't be homegrown. Scarlett, Divine, Phillips, obviously. With what we've just said, we're 2 players down on the bad home quota that we are already.
Yeah. That's why for me you need to get Johnson in as quick as possible, because that will count as homegrown. So and for someone like Daniel Levy, who doesn't understand football, but he's good at business, you would have thought he'd looked at that and gone that we can send players the other way to Forest, bring the price down for him, and we get the player in. So that will solve quite a few problems for him, and if Ange wants him as well. So, yeah, that is definitely a problem. The homegrown players, I think Spence could potentially leave this window. Like you said, Forster won't be long-term. I think Parrott, will probably get loaned out or see his contract through, or maybe even a permanent sale before then. I just can't see him in Tottenham. I can see Scarlett having a future, but not Parrott. So that is definitely an issue. But, we failed to get players out the door. Therefore, the club claim we haven't got players in. So it's a never-ending cycle, if you like.
Where does it end, George?
Where does it end? Oh, how many times have I asked myself that question? Listen, I just can't see this ending. I don't think these owners are going to jump ship. They're onto a real moneymaker here. They know it. The profile of football has changed considerably from the days that we were going when we were a bit younger. Brian, I mean, when we were going, I still go. I've still got my season ticket. But you go into the stadium and you realise that the supporter that had the don't want to call it the power, but had the profile of being one that would go to every game, etc., and was respected for that by the club, doesn't exist anymore. So if I could just, my understanding is this: a supporter walking into the ground now can be categorized in 2 ways. There can either be a season ticket holder and what they call a legacy supporter or legacy fan. That legacy fan, when times are going bad, is great. They come to the ground, they support the club with their season ticket, cost at the start of the season. And then after that, what happens is that if the club are doing well, like we're kind of doing okay at the moment, then we can't become a liability because we don't spend the money that somebody coming on for a day trip to the stadium will spend. So the supporters, the fans themselves, we need to address this. We need to be unified together to say to this board that, listen, you've handled this, what's going on the pitch terribly. I mean, terribly is, I think, a real understatement over the last 22 years, and they've got to do something about it. What you just reeled off there is really disappointing. Because our academy was so good at creating talent in it, within it, and we were good at spotting good talent as well. The issue is that we are always trying to do what is going on the pitch on the cheap, and it's trying to over negotiate things, overcomplicate things, when in fact what we need to be doing is increasing the profile of the club by winning trophies. And yes, granted, if it's done incorrectly, you can pay the price, a la Leeds or Other clubs have tried to dip their foot into that water, but done properly. If you look at Liverpool or Arsenal as an example, it can be done. So the only thing that we can really take this forward on is trying to get people to plan this better in respect of our recruitment, which has been absolutely dire. Let's face it.
Yep. And Joe, whilst we wait for Kuva, we'll go on to departures. We'll bring Kuva back in when he comes in, and we'll go over it. But so we've got a busy day, or busy couple of days, we hope. And Jay put in this super chat, and I heard rumours about this, but now obviously Jay's confirmed. Spurs have rejected a loan offer from Burnley for Eric Dyer. Would have been the perfect Trojan horse. And the only reason I can think, Harry, that we've turned this loan down is there must be a permanent deal in the offing, or they're trying to get a permanent deal in the offing. What do you make of the club turning Burnley down?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. They must be waiting for a permanent offer, like you say, Brian. Personally, just because of the squad numbers we got, I would have accepted that. There could have been a way they found with Burnley, like a loan with an option to buy. So yeah, but at the same time, I suppose that loans don't solve the problem. Amount of players who come back from loan this year, but it would get players out the door now because we've got a big squad. Centre back out the door, so that was a potential. So if he got Dyer out the door, then there's no excuse really to not bring a centre back in. So that would have been offloading the centre back. Personally, would have accepted it, but I don't know the conditions of the loan. But no, it's definitely an interesting one. We need to get players out the door. Time is running out. When you've got players like Lloris and Ndombele, Dyer, who haven't been in the matchday squad for any of the games, you're just sitting here on the wage. Then why are they still there? Why haven't they been sold? And sadly, if they're not going to be sold, then you have to rip up contracts because that is what big clubs do. It's what I've always said. If you want the squad numbers down, you want to bring players in, then you got to be harsh sometimes. So strange it hasn't been accepted because that was a way out for the player. I think would have got regular football at Burnley. So if you die, you push for the move. You're not being the matchday squad for Spurs. Burnley obviously major step down, but still in the Premier League and get first team football. But it's interesting from the club. They've just said no to a route of getting another player out the door. Crazy.
Okay, all right. Before I go to you, George, I'm just to bring in Mr. Kuva. How are we doing, Kuva?
Yeah, good here. I thought, sorry, I was a little bit late because I was expecting a bit of a morning fallout, and I had one myself as well.
Oh dear. Well, I'm going to come to you about transfers in, and then this in a moment. But George, the thing is, what we got to look at with loans as well is, and Spurs need to remember this number. You're only allowed seven loans this summer. We already have 4. In Troy Parrott, Alfie Devine, Joe Rodon, Jed Spence. So we have 3 more that we can use for the current time. I'd rather they went to people who have a pathway to our first team and need first team football to show what they got. Is Eric Dyer a viable loan move if need be, or do you want him just out the door?
I'd prefer him sold. I think most supporters would probably say the same thing, and I think he probably would say the same thing as well. I mean, he'll want a little bit of certainty in his future going on. But have you told the club that though, Brian? Because if you can remember last season, they got that completely wrong and ended up having to, tear up the contract for who was our right back that we ended up. Sorry,
Matt Doherty.
Matt Doherty, exactly. And look, for players who are going to come to our club, and I mean, whatever you say about Doherty, wasn't the best player, but he played, he gave his best for the club. And to do that to him at that particular stage is pretty diabolical. I mean, some of the way that we treat some of our more loyal players is pretty poor. But it's the whole loan situation is a mess as a result of having got rid of 4 or 5 managers in sort of 6 seasons and trying to buy what they want for the squad, and then the next manager coming in and not fancying that player and it's just all a complete mess. It's going to take a long time to get rid of these players. They're going to run down their contracts because they're very lucrative contracts. So if you look at Lo Celso's, or you look at Ndombele's, or I mean, the amount of money that they're on is just crazy, and what they've actually given to Tottenham Hotspur has been really minimal. So yeah, it's a mess again. I don't want to sort of flog a dead horse here, but
yeah,
it's all bad planning, bad recruitment, and just not enough attention being paid to what's going on the pitch.
right. You're right. Right, Kuva. I don't know how much. Are you aware of what's happened with the Fati deal with Barcelona and what's happened there?
Oh, Fati to Brighton now, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
It was going ahead, and then within 15 minutes, here we go to Brighton. It was 99% done apparently, but there are rumours that we hadn't made any inquiries. Obviously, they'll come out, of course, because when it backfire, the best way to do it. Let's do some PR. Let's do some PR. We've got that. Apparently, we're miles off Brennan Johnson, and Arsenal are now sniffing around, and Brentford have reignited their interest. How are you standing on this transfer deadline day eve? Where do you sit? What do you even make of this?
Not surprised in the slightest about Fati. Brighton play good football. We struggle to get 11 players that can play that kind of football. Would have made sense, I think. People saying, only want permanent deals and things like that, but we're in trouble. We can't seem to sign players. We do need somebody with talent, somebody with a technical ability, a bit of flair, a bit of imagination. I don't think we need a speed merchant like Brennan Johnson. I think it's the wrong player. Would have made more sense to go all out for Fati if we could, but that's probably not a likely scenario. You can imagine he's going to want to stay at Barcelona. He'll have a year away to get himself fit and re-establish himself playing all the time. But I think he's going to want to force himself back into the team at somewhere like Barcelona. Meanwhile, what's happening with this club? It's the same as always, isn't it? Every season we go through this. Things left way too late. Possible targets we're going for that even if we get them, it's just kind of, well, are they going to be a first team starter? Is Brennan Johnson going to start if we spend, go up to something like 60 million or something stupid? He's going to be on the bench most games, isn't he? We're still going to be picking Kulusevski's son, Richarlison. Where does he come in? I don't really get that one at all. Now, if we go for a gamble on an out-and-out goal scorer, I mean, people have been saying it for quite a few weeks now, Gift Orban, somebody like that. Even though they're unproven and in a really big league, they do bang the goals in on a consistent basis. And if anybody's seeing something different to what I am, we don't have that at the moment. We don't have anybody doing that. So I think that's a better gamble than some of the ones we're linked with. Certainly Brennan Johnson. Brennan Johnson, he's all right player. He's quick. He can hurt teams on the break, but let's face it, we are aiming to play football in the opponent's half. So you need players with a bit of guile, bit of vision, bit of flair, somebody that can sort of weave their way through. I've said it on a few shows. I think we need to find our own version of a Mahrez or a Foden or a Grealish, somebody like that. Somebody just, we've already got one. We've got Maddison that can do that kind of thing. Get somebody in that sort of mould. I don't think just speed alone isn't going to be what makes us really take over. Just more pure talent. Get great technical players with a bit of intelligence that can pass the ball quickly, accurately, and with a little bit of guile to it. I think we'll be all right then. As for centre backs, things like that, we know we're going to be stuffed. We can't replace everybody we need to. As far as I'm concerned, you could easily ship 20 players out from our squad. They just aren't good enough. And as George was saying quite rightly, we have a dirge of players that are just overpaid and mediocre. Who's going to pay for them? They're not going to go to big clubs because they're not good enough. Smaller clubs can't afford their wages. They're just going to sit here drawing the wage off our club because it's easy life. And we've built this over time. This is not an accidental one-off. We've done it consistently over years. That's why we're in this mess. Now, Am I bothered about what's happening? Am I bothered about going out of the cup on Tuesday? Honest answer is no. The last 4 years, slowly but surely, and it came to a head last season, is this club's broken me. I just don't have any feelings about this anymore. It's we go out of a cup, I'll just shrug it off. It's like watching a TV program to me now. This club's gone. That's how I feel. The only way that this club is rekindled is it was going to be a rebirth, and that's new ownership. I cannot see anything ever changing. All we're ever going to do is sack a manager, get a new one in, and hope he works a minor miracle under these ridiculous constraints we're put under. People will big it up. We actually have people fight against this to say, "Oh no, it's a business." Why does it have to be this way? You can, as far as I'm concerned, you should have a football club that is supported by a business, not the other way round. We are definitely the other way round. It's all about getting that money in, keeping the books balanced. Players, staff, don't, the players coming in don't really matter that much. We'll get some right. Maddison's great signing. Van de Ven looks like a great signing. A doggy too. I mean, I'm destroying my own argument here with some of these players, but we do get some right. But for each one of those, we get these dubious ones in that, what's the point? Look at our reserve goalkeeper, Fraser Forster. He's a decent player, but would you really pay 75 grand a week to have somebody that sits on the bench bar an occasional cup game? What's wrong with just having some academy players or something fill in, much cheaper wage? They get a bit of experience whenever there's an injury to your main goalkeeper. Other clubs do that fine. Yeah. Us, no. Well, when we do have our opportunity and we get into the Champions League places, compare what we did to what Arsenal do. And it is a good comparison to make. They get their chance back into those Champions League spots, which they've been denied for years. Spend big to try and secure it, push on. When we do it, it's got to be frugal, bargain buckets, see if we can get somebody on the cheap, miss out on a lot because we're doing it. Nothing changes. I just don't care anymore. I'll just, the only thing that bothers me now is, like I told you before, Brian, as soon as you put a tweet out about protests, I'll just retweet that, and it's long term. That's all that I can see really making anything happen at this club. We just need to out.
You got to look at this. Thank you, Colonel Yid. This is what makes me laugh about this. Not what he's put. Matt Law has said we are going to make an offer for Johnson today. This is the thing. Sam said it on our show yesterday. We've been interested in him apparently since the Kane saga. We have been in talks, and we still, with 1 day and whatever amount of hours left, we still haven't registered an opening bid. We still haven't put in a bid, and now we're doing it at some point today, apparently. I've got absolutely no faith that this bid comes in, and if it does, I think we could play a game here and saying, how short of the 50 million do you think we're going with the opening bid? What will be your opening guess, George?
How short? I would probably say that they'll probably come in something like 10 million bid and Eric Dyer. I mean, look, it's a flippant response. That what's going to happen is that it's not going to be the bid the Forest want, is it? So they're going to want they're going to want the money, or they're going to want a player. The only way that you're going to agree terms with the Forest is if one of our players wants to go and join them, and whether we can reduce the fee in that way. Now, you would have thought that's a pretty basic statement, isn't it, Brian? I mean, I've just made that statement, and I think you could have said that to Forest a long time ago, and you could have started having that discussion, that dialogue. But again, the tactic seems to be, let's go away. Let's start a negotiation with Fati, because what Forest will then think is we're going to go for a different player, and then they'll reduce their fee accordingly. But of course, what's happened is that it all blows up in Tottenham's face. He decides to go to Brighton, stick two fingers up at Tottenham, and then we're in a situation where Forest say, well, actually, we've actually got two further clubs that are now interested in him. So wasted a whole load of time playing silly buggers, trying to be clever, and in the end, potentially losing out. So would I be surprised if we lost out and he goes to Arsenal, which would be obviously the worst case scenario? Not particularly. It's happened before. Why should we be surprised? And Kuva just echoes what I was saying before about sort of a demoralized fan base, and not really having much expectation anymore, just following Tottenham because it's a large part of our life, has always been a large part of our life. And we watch it and just get on with it after the disappointment. So, like I said, the only way that we are going to improve this situation is if the fans themselves get united, if you pardon the term. All this stuff about, Tottenham is now a business. Okay, they're a business. So are Man United. So are Liverpool. So are ours. All the top clubs are businesses. What differentiates them is the ambition that they have in order to bring trophies and increase the profile of their clubs. And Daniel Levy and this board have not had the gumption or the know-it-all, to be perfectly honest with you, to improve things on the pitch. And it's that simple. And unfortunately, things aren't really going to change in the foreseeable future. Every transfer window will be similar to this one.
Thank you, Google.
You're right, George. Oh, sorry, just quickly responding.
Go on, bro.
Yeah, absolutely. There are other clubs. Most clubs are run like a business. You're right, though. The difference is they do put the football as their primary product. We don't seem to do that. We seem to be very poor at prioritizing what makes us a football club. So we're very good at getting all these concerts in and all the off-field activities all in place. Very impressive. The very fact that we can be at such a elevated level within the sort of rich lists, if you like, the Forbeses and those sorts of things. The fact we're up there in the top 10 on a regular basis when we don't win things is actually quite impressive. But at the end of the day, you've got to know what you are. We're a football club. We should be looking to push on and win things. We're always looking for the cheap options instead of the great options. And it's cost us. It really has. Man United are struggling with it. They win trophies and they're still protesting because they know what level they should be at. We don't win anything, and we will have people vehemently defending what we do no matter what.
Kuba, if you recall last season's Man United game at home, when Man United were 2-0 up and they were singing Glazers out.
Exactly.
Yep. And loudly.
I walked out of that game, George.
It was. Listen, it's something that is now intrinsic to the club. The whole Spursy term and everything else. Coming to terms with we are the also rans. In the whole world of football, when our history is so rich. It's not easy for the newer supporters like Harry to have to see every season the disappointment. As we were sort of growing up, we saw some real glory days and some real ambition to the club. But nothing, unfortunately, much has changed since Keith Birkinshaw walked out and said there used to be a club in there. And it's unfortunate. We live in hope that at some point the penny is going to drop and a lot more money can be made if the profile of your club is far better and trophies are in that cabinet and your global presence is felt. But I don't know if our board is competent enough to see it.
I think you're right, George. I just want to quickly say there's almost 400 people in here. So thank you once again. The channel really is growing. We've grown 730 subscribers in 2.5 weeks. Wow. Thank you so much for your support. Please continue to like. We've got almost 400 in here and we only have 118 likes. If we can get that closer to the 50-50 mark of 200, that would be absolutely incredible. But Harry, I'm going to come to you because I'm going to change the subject away from transfer gloom and doom. But I am going to talk about something that has broken yesterday. And I think it couldn't have come out at a worse time. And it just shows the way that this club is being run. I'm sure the three of you and Harry, I'm coming to you first about news that broke about Harry Kane's departure yesterday. I've got a bit more in depth about it. Whether it's true or not, I personally believe it is true because, like I said, I know, or I've been watching how this man operates for a long time and been where I stand for 15 years, almost 16 years. So Harry Kane was banned or barred from Tottenham's training ground in the hours before completing his move to Bayern. The club wrote in an email to formally tell Kane it would not be appropriate for him to return to their training ground ahead of formalising his transfer. Kane did not get the chance to say any face-to-face goodbyes to players and staff and did not pick up any of his personal possessions himself. Instead, he had to wait for them to be sent on to him and his family, who also could not access his suite at the stadium. Now, the suite at the stadium, fair play, fair dues, you're leaving the club, it's obvious you're going, that I've got no problem with. But if it is true that they barred him from the training ground, the way they told him is via email, and apparently that email was sent to Kate, a heavily pregnant Kate, to say, this is like literally texting your girlfriend to say we're over, or your boyfriend, whatever. This is the most, how could I believe every single word of it. I do, I really do. How can you do this to someone that's given you 10 years of first team service, another 10 years behind the scenes, the England captain, your would have been our captain, our vice captain at the time, our record goal scorer. I mean, Harry, again, I come on to this. I'm sorry, my mother is just coming in some. Thanks, Mum. It is your house, so I'll let you do what you want. How can she's the boss, and there she. Thanks, Mum. So yeah, so how can it, Harry? First of all, do you believe it? And what does this say to you about the state of our club and what these owners are really like? What do you reckon, Harry?
Yeah, sadly, it is believable. It sounds like a thing that the club will do. If this story is true, I mean, is an if, I don't know. But if it is, then it is wrong. Of course it is, because Kane, the service he's given us, Tottenham and England's all-time record goal scorer. Yeah, I've been watching him on my screen, first-team football since I was 2 years old. So he's done a lot for the club, put it that way. So the very least, you've got to let him say goodbye. I mean, it would have been nice for the club to put together a video. Kane obviously done his own goodbye. I quite like it when, like Henderson leave, they do this big emotional video. But, that didn't come. So, yeah, if that's true, then it's not the right way to go about it. But like I say, sadly, it is believable. I think it's a thing that the club will do. It's just wrong. It just doesn't make sense. I get it, like you say, Brian, with the suite. I get it, but you should be able to say his goodbyes. He should be, club thanked. He should be able to go around and say goodbye. Just someone like Kane, who's been at that Tottenham for that long, you will want to say. I believe you want to say goodbye. You can see with the video. I still think Tottenham is in his heart, so I think he would have wanted to say goodbye. So it's quite poor from the club, if that is true.
George, your feelings on whether you believe this?
Yeah, I mean, look, if you, I saw Harry's leaving sort of message to the fans, and it was to the fans. It wasn't to the club, was it?
No, he said. When he did his goodbye, he said thank you and goodbye to everyone except the board.
Correct. So I think he mentioned, the ones that you would considered to be really the dressing room staff, the caterers, everything like that. So listen, Harry Kane is class. He's a classy guy, and you can tell that it's not something that is being made up. It's the way he is. So to be treated like that is not. Do I believe it? Yes, I do. I have inside information about other stuff that's happened to Tottenham Hotspur royalty, and it's quite distasteful. I'm not going to mention it here because I don't think the people concerned with it would really want it sort of to be out fully, but the reality is that our club, or the board of our club, is not in touch with the fabric of our heritage as a as an institution, and it's quite sad that is dissipating. Why on earth? What I mean, if I was building that stadium, if it was me, the first thing that would have been put up would have been a statue to Bill Nick. The whole plot, everything that would have been done, would have should have been planned prior to even putting a single brick up of the new stadium. And there are others as well. I mean, people who have suffered. Walter Tull, a real part of Tottenham history. There should be a statue up to him. Considering what he had to go through to play football at Tottenham Hotspur, and it's quite sad that things like that have to happen. I mean, why would they do it? I don't think it would be out of spite or bitterness. I think it's probably purely a business approach. He doesn't want to, they don't want him to be able to turn around to, I don't know, another star and say, look, I've heard that at Bayern there might be another place or something along those lines. But look, Harry Kane has got all their phone numbers. He's got, their agents are going to be at it and everything like that. It's another, situation where the club ends up with its pants down, really. And I don't know, not surprised.
Kuba, off you go first, sir. What's your thoughts on this?
Absolutely believe it. This is the club that's so callous they sack Martin Jol at half time. They don't give a damn about feelings or interpersonal relationships or relationships with the fans. Look at the way they communicate with the fans in particular. There's nothing, is there? It's just this wall of silence. We're just expected to just consume whatever's shoveled our way. Saying goodbye to somebody that's been an absolute legend for this club would have been a primary requisite of the deal for me. As George said, these other players are going to have Harry Kane's phone number. It's not like he won't be able to contact them. It's not a problem. It makes no sense. It's so almost human. It's just no appreciation of the building bonds between players and fans. There's none of this happening at this club. It's like when it gets to the boardroom level, that's like the wedge that just is driven between everything. When we're talking about disconnect, it comes from that board level. It really does. Like as mentioned, this building a new stadium, it should have been dripping with memorabilia of our past. It's not. There's the few pictures up here and there, and you'd expect shrines. You'd expect it to be a shrine to the history of Tottenham Hotspur. That's what I would expect. The Jimmy Greaves, the Danny Blanchflowers, the Steve Perryman stuff all over the place. Gary Mabbutt, all of our winning captains and greatest players. I just don't feel like that. It feels like this. It's built as a corporate venue for all sorts of different things. That's exactly what we've got. Different sporting events. You look at the club shop when it's an NFL day. You wouldn't even know that's a Spurs
or concerts.
Yeah, you just wouldn't know it, and you think that would be there at all times. I think it's just indicative of what we do.
Actually, do you know what? Just to add more weight to the belief of that. Well said, Matthew. Don't forget, Poch had to leave a message on the training ground tactics board.
I reckon, Brian, I reckon they were concerned about Harry tapping up the kit man, or the catering staff, one of the two.
And of course, he had to be banned from the suite because he's bound to nick the towels. Everybody does that.
Oh, of course,
that's true. I'm just going to very quickly touch on the supporters trust, then we'll do a few questions that I've starred. And obviously we wrap it up around 10 o'clock-ish, so we'll go for a little bit longer. But thank you to the 391 people watching. Protest. So, not going to go too much into ours. I just want to mention that the Trust have obviously announced Sheffield United to do it. They will have the support of us again, but I've got a really bad feeling for this one, because if the people were saying that we were going to overrun their protest and we were going to take over their protest and make it about us, I had direct communication with Anthula, informing them that we won't, and our people will be respectful, and our people will put the banners away, and our people will come in peace, and we did. And obviously, it was Levy Out was sung at that protest on a few occasions, and they were quickly muted, but they were there. And I'm very, very concerned that if this transfer window ends the way that it does right now, this is going to be more than gate crashed. It will be taken over, and that's not from us, because we've said we'll lend our support. But if this transfer window ends the way it does, I feel very, very sorry for the Trust, because they're not going to realise what they've walked into, because it will get taken over. And you know what? If it is this time, I'm not going to try and put out fires, or we aren't. I don't think. I've got to discuss it with everyone else, but there comes a point where we've asked for help, we've asked for people to join us, and it doesn't happen. We've done our bit and shown that we can do things alongside the Trust, but the Trust still haven't got back to the club. The Trust still haven't the club haven't communicated to the Trust. The club haven't lowered tickets. The club haven't listened to fans via transfers. The club have asked you to register your interest in the new pink, grey, brown, taupe, hideous kit. The club have still started charging you way over the odds for everything. So we're going to have to see what happens when the window shuts on that one. But we'll go through some questions very, very quickly. Well, first one I want to bring up is from Jay. It's not even a question. This is where we are. My first game was 1976. I'm a legacy fan. I've seen it all, and I will say it now. This is the worst I've ever felt as a Spurs fan, solely down to Levy and Enoch. Jason, thank you, and you know what for. I have to give a big thank you to Jason. What I will tell, Jason helped me with the Manchester United artwork, and thank you very much indeed for doing that, because my guy was away. He got in touch with me as soon as I asked and whacked something up for me. So Jason, thank you very much indeed.
Got to say, 76 was my first game as well. I was 5 years old, and we'll have the same time frame.
There you go. My first game was 88. George, when was your first game?
My first game was a friendly, believe it or not, after we had got relegated, I think, and the school organised a trip there, and I remember them putting out chairs on the terraces for us to sit on, and it was just one of those things that just absorbed me from that point on. I mean, I think I can just about remember some of the players. That what sort of stands out for me was just the size of their physicality back then. They just seemed much bigger. Whether it was just because we were obviously young kids and they were much bigger individuals playing football, I think, back then. But yeah, I was very, very attached to what was the old White Hart Lane. And
yep.
I was very, very sad when it all got torn down. So it's again, I don't want to sort of again flog a dead horse, but the new stadium for me just look, it's an amazing feat of engineering and looks lovely, but ultimately doesn't have much soul for me, really.
Yep.
I can say that now looking back on it, I probably enjoyed my trips to Wembley when we were there, rather than having to look at all those red seats, than I did at the new stadium. So yeah.
Yep. I mean, I forgot to mention when Coover was talking about the history. I remember when that stadium was being built and we couldn't knock down, or the club couldn't knock down that house next to, or that building next to the club shop, and that was going to be a Spurs museum for all this history. I don't see a museum.
Has that opened yet?
Nope,
not
hasn't even been touched. The gates we all talk about, but the homage to our history that we were told is still gathering dust like the trophy cabinet. I'm going to come to you, Harry. First question from Benjamin. Do you think this is what Levy's ultimately wants, desensitizing the real fans?
So this is a good question. Hard one to answer personally. Daniel Levy's got to take a long, hard look at himself, and for example, this season, look what he wants to do, what matters to him, what his priorities. Because it doesn't look like for anyone inside the club, manager, players, etc., that the Carabao Cup was our focus. Personally, I'm devastated about that. With seasons, with the prices in match day ticket prices, that they're far too high. That is obviously forcing fans out of the games. In terms of that, Levy's taking the wrong approach to that. He's forcing what I call proper Spurs fans out of the game, and they can't afford it. So there are things that doing that you can definitely argue for that Levy is not respecting the fans on, but it is ultimately a good question. I guess the transfer window, the last 2 days will have a big say how much it matters to Levy that we get backup striker. Yes, Brian, time will tell, but something needs to happen dramatic in the 2 days because already we've seen a cup upset, Carabao Cup getting knocked out of round 2. So it's not the start of the season we wanted. Feels like a bubble's been burst, but we can make good cases for Levy in terms of he doesn't respect the fans.
Do you know what? Lee just said from Daily Hotspur, we are considering a late bid. There's that word, considering. There's that word, considering.
Also late bid.
Yeah, for Conor Gallagher, who we've been interested in for. Do you know what? I'm going to start getting wound up. I don't need the Woosa. If anyone's seen that movie, Woosa. Same question to you, George, and then we'll go to Kuva. Is this what Daniel Levy wants?
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, he doesn't want fans to be, speaking up. He wants us to be quiet, meek, and as Kuva says, take in what we're being shoveled. And it's just a bizarre, real situation here. If you want to use the phrase, I don't like it, but as a legacy supporter walking into the stadium, it's all well and good when things aren't going bad because you pay for your season ticket up front and you are a good cash cow. But the reality is that where the money is to be made are supporters coming out for a day trip and spending a couple of £100 in the Spurs shop. And after that, sort of buying their meal in the stadium and going in there for an experience, and then they may not come back, maybe, or that may happen maybe 3 times in a season. So it's I think it's probably right that they want the old style football fan really to be meek and silent. And to be superseded by the new type of football fan who's going to like their creature comforts, let's say, sitting in having a meal in one of the boxes there and having their free pint or whatever it is that they give up for the extortionate prices that they do. So yeah, I mean, it's an odd way of doing things, but I think that's probably right.
So, Jacob, before I come to you with the answer to your about that, the rumours about Conor Gallagher are coming from Matt Law, so they've got a bit of weight behind them. So, not saying that means anything good or whatever, because we've seen what rumours do, but this isn't just a little bit of talk. If Matt Law's going on about it, there's some weight behind us monitoring the situation or registering our interest to monitor the situation to maybe agree to verbally talk, as I've seen mentioned. Kuva, your thoughts on the question about is this what Levy wants?
I think George has pretty much summed up on what I was going to say. It's all about the money, isn't it? Why is Levy going to care about a local fan that comes in, pays for basically the match day pint maybe at half time, then goes off again? Because they've already got their shirt and everything from previous matches. Not going to spend anything in the club shop. Off they go with their mates. Why are they going to prioritise that over the fan that comes in from even abroad, who's spent thousands of pounds to get over here, will spend hundreds more in the club shop and generate huge amount of funds? That's the one they care about. It's always going to be this way now. It's a sad sign of the times, but I mean, we won't be the only club doing this. We just seem to be one of the most predominant ones because we never win anything to go with it. That's the real difference, isn't it? As said earlier, you look at Man United protesting even when they do win trophies because they know they should be doing more than what they currently are. With us, doesn't matter.
You're right.
Even the fans will, really aggressively back exactly what we're doing. I mean, is this what you really want? It's not enough for me.
Exactly. Now, Bryce has put some humour in here, and I always get this when I shave my hair. Did you shave your head to look like a certain chairman that you're a big fan of? Most definitely not. And did I hear you whisper two words that you'll never hear me say in the same sentence ever? One, because I just won't. And two, if I even said that in passing, I know that'll get clipped and it'll be around everywhere within seconds. So most definitely not. Most definitely not, sir. I sometimes do it to see if I can. I think if I put my glasses on, could I get into the training ground and pretend to be him and be there waiting for him when he gets in? That's my next target. Then we've got Jason. I wanted to tag this because this is, like we said, we discussed this. Jason's first game, 1976. Sorry, Harry, I didn't ask you. When was your first game?
Oh, good question. I think it was this is not long ago to you guys, but 2016. I think it was something like West Brom. They were White Lane. I think it was. I was young. I think I was about 5, 6. I think I only made half the game. I think we drew the game 1-1 or maybe 1-2-1. So I think that was my first game. I've still got the program for it somewhere, so I have to find it. Yeah, that I think that is my first game, but I didn't see many games the old White Hart Lane. And quite a few at Wembley, obviously quite a few at the new stadium. But that old stadium definitely had something about it for sure. And that game against West Brom, some of it does still stick with me.
Okay, so just let you know, I've just been sent something about Brennan Johnson. Daniel Levy initially offered 20 million and Davinson Sanchez earlier on in the summer to Nottingham Forest for Brennan Johnson. Nottingham Forest expect Spurs to leave it late in the window, but are holding it out for £45 million. So I think we can safely say if that's what they're holding out for and they stay true to their words, that ain't happening. I'll answer this first, and we'll go around this quick. Mashing Joe, good afternoon. Hello from Sydney. Big up. You support Everton, or he supports Everton. Spurs aren't run as bad as Everton. Do you know what? What I have to say to this is when people, I had this when I was going through rehab for alcohol. People used to go, "I'm a bigger alcoholic than you. I drink." It's not a competition. If you're an alcoholic, you're an alcoholic. It doesn't matter if you have a bottle of wine a day, a glass of wine a day, 2 glasses of wine, whatever you drink, or whatever your poison is. Yes, Everton are run hideously, and I really do sympathise for you guys. And I have to say, I have mad respect for your supporters. Mad respect for your supporters. If only we could have 10% of the passion that you have, guys, to get your owners out. But in a way, you guys know it's happening. You guys, that it's happened for years, and you guys don't accept it, but the board just don't do anything. We get told lies upon lies upon lies. We get told this stadium is a game changer. Transfer fees won't be affected. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And then it's excuse after excuse after excuse. I would rather owners like yours, not in the way that how they've done it, but they just say, listen, we ain't got money. This ain't happening. We're not going to invest. Like Mike Ashley did at Newcastle. I'm not investing. There you go. No transfers. I'm not putting money into this football club. Whereas we just get fed lies. But I do feel your pain big time, and I wish all your supporters success this season in what you've got to do to get them out, because you stand up and unite. And I feel very sorry. Everton are a huge club, and they've been mistreated. Again, Cooper, I'll go to you first. What would you say? Do you reckon we aren't run as bad, or it's like I said before, there's different levels to this?
Oh yeah, absolutely different levels to it. Yeah, I've got a lot of time for Everton as well. We're real soft spot for them. A great family club. They really embrace the local community. I love all that about it. Them and Liverpool together, it's all about the community, and got to respect that. I always absolutely hate this argument that's used when you complain about our club. That we go, people will say, "Oh, it could be worse. Look at what's happening at Everton," or "Look at what's happened at Sunderland or Leeds." It's like always looking down at those people below to justify what you're doing. Why not look upwards and say, "Oh, look at what Arsenal did last season," or "Look at what Brighton are doing. Look at what Man City are doing at the top." Shouldn't we try and be like that rather than just say, "Oh, well, at least we're not as bad as them down there"? That sums up the lack of ambition at the club. It's always, "I'm okay here. Everything's fine. Don't bother me. Don't need to try anymore. As long as we're not Everton, it's great." I feel really sorry for Everton fans. They've been suffering as badly, worse than we have for a long time. Again, it's another club that relies on a miracle manager every now and then to sort of hope they kickstart into something, but their recruitment's even worse than ours.
Yeah, I mean that goes and says something. George, what do you feel about obviously not the comparison, but the way that Everton are run compared to ours?
Yeah, I mean there are parallels, aren't there? I mean the difference, I think, is that with Everton, that they've had to suffer far more with the success of Liverpool. So as a support, as a fan base, with local rivals, it's it's very, very difficult for them, more so than for us with Arsenal's. There's been a bit of a respite there for us. But I mean, look, you when you watch the games, Everton games, I mean, they are loud. I mean, the fans there are just amazing. And it can sometimes be inspirational, really. We need those fans to be back at Tottenham. I sort of try and sort of say, because of the whole moving into the new stadium for us, that a lot of the groups that were there in the old White Hart Lane have been split up and dumbed down to a certain degree, and just hopefully over time it will build itself back up. But I think the whole ethos of the new the new stadium facility, whatever you want to call it, is more pitched at a higher, let's say higher, not a good word, a different level, let's say. So hopefully the fans will come on in later years as there's more intrinsic links between them, but let's wait and see. But big respect for Everton fans, huge.
Yep, there we go. Right, we're gonna wrap it up there, as my nephews have just arrived. So when they arrive, they mean more to me than any dickhead that owns this football club could ever do. Harry, thank you for coming on, buddy. Where can people find you?
Yeah, thank you very much for having me on, Brian. You can find me there by Twitter handle HarryScarf22. I have my own channel, Scarfy Spurs, still contemplating whether to do a deadline special tomorrow, whether it'd be worth it or not. I'll let you guys know if I get mine up by the end of the day. I'm also co-host a Park Lane podcast, and I'm also running for the Football Content Awards, hoping to make the final 10 in Best Young Content Creator, which you'll find out on the 25th of September. So any votes or shares on my Twitter pinned tweet, we massively appreciate it. But thank you for having me on, Brian, and big up to everyone in the chat. So thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to go for Young Creator of the Year, but I don't think I'm going to make it. I just think I might make the cutoff But yeah, you mentioned, before I go to George and Cooper, you mentioned transfer deadline day. People that aren't aware or haven't heard, Tottenham on tour are doing an extravagant transfer deadline day bonanza, where the breakfast show that we do like today will be on here 8:50 till 10 in the morning. Then we're all off to Ben's Coffee's house in Woodford, and we will be going on and off pretty much all day. We're not going to stream constantly. We'll have breaking news, we'll have transfer rumours, in, out, we'll have pre-recorded stuff, we'll have some fun and games. So if anyone wants to come on the show, just reach out to us. We're going to be putting a link out with a fan show. But also, if anyone wants to come down and are in the Woodford area and want to join us throughout the day, we are staying there till 11 p.m. at night or when the window shuts. So if you want to come down at any time, come to Ben's Coffee House just by Woodford train station on the Central Line. George, my man, finally got you on the channel, the first of many times, because I love spending time with you and you're a top man. Obviously, can people find you anywhere, or do you want to let people know how they can find you?
Well, not really. I'm on Twitter anyway, so if anybody wants to get in touch, you can find me there on George accounts. But other than that, no, I'm a bit of a lone gun. Brian.
You're not a lone gun, mate. You're part of the We Are Tottenham TV family, and I love you dearly. And someone that's a huge part of this community, and everyone loves seeing you on screen. Kuva, my brother, where can people find you?
Oh, not everybody, mate. I have a few people who really don't like me. I'm going to be obviously 3 Spurs boys Saturday night. I will be going over to join Saga on his show in a few minutes as well. I feel quite calm about everything at the moment, so I'm just keeping with the same message as always. This is a long-term struggle we have as being fans at this club. And big up to Brian and all of those lads that get out there on the protests, giving up huge amounts of their time, putting the effort in where it counts. I dearly wish I could be there with you, mate. You know,
I know. Of course, brother.
It's a social gathering as far as I'm concerned. There's a lot of good people there.
Thank you very much indeed. Yeah, we'll be there again for Sheffield United. I'll be there again for Liverpool, and that'll be the last one I can do because I'm getting on a plane and going home to my beautiful wife and the beautiful country I call home. But everyone, thank you for watching. Go join Kuva over on Sava's channel. And please join us tomorrow. But most importantly, like, comment, share, subscribe. And as always, Levy out.